Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Ohio Grandparent Kinship Coalition, our meeting for November the 15th. This is something that we have every month, so I want to welcome you. My name is Dr. Sonia Ware, and I am the co-president of this coalition. And I am happy to give you some information today. There have been recently some changes, and we want to let you know. So we have a few changes, a few announcements, and then we're going to go ahead and get started with our speaker and our wonderful topic for today. So like I said, I am the co-president, and after many years of service, we would like to thank Dr. Ollie Jones of Akron for her time in our organization. She has stepped down as co-president, and we would like to welcome Lynn Stevens as the co-president with myself. And we have two new co-vice presidents. We have Siobhan Jones of Columbus, and if you're on here, if you could show yourself. I don't think she is. And we also have Brenda Dewberry of Dayton, and she is also a co-president. I do see your name. Are you able to show yourself, Ms. Dewberry, and wave to the people? If you're not, that's okay. And then we also have Barbara Turbin acting as our secretary. All right. And we have a couple other announcements. First of all, we want to make sure that all the caregivers know to put your name and email in the chat. And this will, if you are a caregiver, you will be eligible to be selected to win a $50 gift card. This is something exciting, and we do this raffle. So if you're a caregiver, make sure you put your name and your email in the chat. We will verify that you are a caregiver, but you can, there is a random draw, and you could be the lucky person to win that $50 gift card today. All right, so some other exciting announcements. We want to announce that next month, December the 9th, we will have a Christmas celebration. It is via Zoom, and it is with Santa. So you, if you have not already seen, you received an Eventbrite invitation went out for you to register there. So the meeting notice and required registration was sent out today. It's limited to the first 75 children registered. So you definitely want to jump on that. Gift cards will be sent to gift caregivers to purchase the Christmas gifts. And if I didn't already say, there is a nice amount of money. Also, another very interesting thing that we are doing, we want to make sure that as you show up for these meetings, and if you need a record or you want a record of your attendance, we have started to give certificates of attendance will be provided to anyone who would like one. You would just need to submit your name to Barbara Turbin if you would like one of these certificates. So it's documentation. We not only have caregivers, but we also have advocates on here as well. And I know myself, I'm actually a college professor, and I can also get credit when I show up to events like this and have documentation for my certification that I hold. So that's awesome. All right. Those were the announcements. And I'm going to go ahead then and continue on. Today, I'm excited because we have a topic that I'm very interested in, and it is keeping the internet safe. And I keep looking to the side because I have another computer that I'm reading off of. All right, so bear with me. With the increasing number of child exploitation cases in the state of Ohio, it's important that caregivers understand the power of the internet and how to keep their children safe. In this presentation, the Ohio ICAC Task Force will be discussing the leading trends in online child exploitation within Ohio and with the varying resources available to caregivers to keep their children safe. These trends will include NCMEC cyber tip line statistics, navigating social media, and sextortion. And we have a wonderful speaker who is giving her time, and her name is Emmaleigh Welka. I believe I'm pronouncing it right. And I'm going to go ahead and read your bio, because sometimes people don't do that. And I've had that done. I'm like, read my bio. I got it together. I want you to say something about me. But Emmaleigh Welka is currently serving as the statewide outreach coordinator for the Ohio Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force under the Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office. In her capacity as statewide outreach coordinator, Emmaleigh has completed over 250 internet safety presentations for students in grades K through 12 and for parents. She has also aided in developing trainings for educators and law enforcement on the topic of outreach and internet safety. Previous to this position, Emmaleigh worked for the Racine County Clerk of Courts, serving as clerical support staff in the Felony Court Office. She is a graduate of Loyola University of Chicago with a bachelor's degree in molecular biology. She holds a master's degree in criminology from Regis University and is currently working to achieve a master's degree in digital forensic from the University of Central Florida. So we want to welcome you and thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Before we get started, I want to warn you, I talk kind of fast. So if at any point you need me to slow down or repeat something, just let me know. I see there's another Loyola Chicago grad in the meeting, so I just want to give a shout out to that person before we go too far. But let me share my screen and we will get started. Okay, pop in this other headphone. Okay, so my name's Emmaleigh Welka. I'm from the Ohio Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and I am currently the statewide outreach coordinator. We got our sound sharing. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with a quick video before we get started. Funny enough, I found this video on Instagram, but I think it highlights just how big of an issue we're dealing with in terms of our task force. But also just how these crimes are committed. Because I feel like we all have specific ideas on how these crimes occur, the offenders that are involved, but this video I think highlights it and explains it perfectly. So we'll get started with this. Whoops.
When I was just starting out, it was harder. You really had to keep things hush-hush. But then the internet came along and
oh geez,
everything changed. Now we hide in plain sight and share all kinds of things. We review, rate, make recommendations, just like anything else out there. Pre-internet, you know how hard it was to pretend to be a 9-year-old girl? Now I just roll up looking like their BFF. And the best part, the only people who could stop me pretend I don't exist. If you ask me, there's never been a better time to be a monster.
All right. And then next up, I have our cyber tip line reports. So what a cyber tip line report is essentially a report that's given to us from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children that documents child exploitation that occurs online. So every app website is legally obligated to report instances of child exploitation. So in 2015, we got about 3,000 reports. So I did the math on this one. It's about 600 a month, I believe. So that many reports. And for us, we were really just focusing on Facebook in terms of social media. Snapchat, I don't believe, came out till 2016. TikTok obviously didn't come out too much later. So our main focus was Facebook. Now, if you ask kids if they have Facebook, they look at us a little funny and they say it's for old people, their words, not mine. But, you know, as technology developed and as different apps come out, we obviously saw a rise in our cases. So last year in 22, we received almost 17,000 cyber tip line reports, which the math on that one is several thousand a month. So a big difference from 2015 to up until last year. And then this year so far, we've received a little over 17,000. So for us, this issue is just continuing to rise, continuing to grow. We thought that after COVID happened and everyone, you know, went back to school, went back to work, that things would kind of level off, but unfortunately that's not the case. So these numbers just really show you how much of an issue child exploitation these cases are in the state of Ohio. These numbers only reflect Ohio. They don't show a national scale. I believe on the national level, there's several million reports of child exploitation. So this is just for the state of Ohio. So a little bit of background on where we come from as a task force on a state level and on a national level is that we were created by the Department of Justice in the late 90s because of three things that they either noticed or they would infer would come to pass. The first is that more kids and teens are using the internet. We do a number of presentations to schools, grades K through 12. And what we're noticing is that kids younger and younger have access to technology, whether it's they have their own phones, they're using tablets that are given to them by parents or caregivers. They have access to the internet as a whole. So the second thing is that more legal material is able to be circulated online compared to before. We call this child sexual abuse material, or CSAM. It's more commonly known as child pornography, but we are trying to change the terminology in terms of that. So if you hear me say those words, just know that they mean the exact same thing. And then lastly, more adults are seeking unsupervised contact with kids and teens. Every kid that we talk to, either it's a first grader, 12th grader, whoever, they all say that they got the stranger danger talk when they were younger. Now, unfortunately, that stranger danger still exists on, social media, online multiplayer, all things such as that. So for us, it's the burden of trying to show kids that even though they may be connecting with individuals over social media or they're people that they play online multiplayer with a lot, if you don't know them in real life, they're still considered strangers. So we're trying to change that narrative so kids continue to process it the same way. In terms of our cyber tips and our cyber tip line report as a whole, this is the split up of the electronic service providers that provided us the most cyber tips in 22. So there's this preconceived idea that our cases can't possibly start on things that people use every single day. So things such as Google or Snapchat or TikTok, Facebook, so on. There's no way that child exploitation material in our cases could start on the clear net. They have to start on the dark net or like the seedy parts of the internet that kids don't have access to. And that is not the case. Our number one cyber tip line report provider in 22 was Google. So Google Drive, Google Photos, Google Accounts, and then YouTube falls underneath Google as well. And then underneath that, we had Snapchat, Facebook, and then so on and so forth. So this just really shows you that kids are unfortunately, cast into this pool of where our cases start. They're not happening on the dark net or places that kids don't have access to. It's things that either they use every day for fun or they're using it for school and so on. So next, I want to draw your attention to how our cases line up against human trafficking. So you can't go anywhere these days without hearing about human trafficking, whether it's at the airport, other transportation areas, it's everywhere. And it should be. It is a big issue, not only in the state of Ohio, but across the entire United States. But for us, we just like to throw this comparison out there so that you can draw your own conclusions. So in 21, the National Human Trafficking Hotline received just over 1,000 human trafficking tips. 72 of those tips involved minor children, so people under the age of 18. For our cases in 21, we received 35 child sex trafficking cyber tips, and this was 0.3% of our total cyber tip load. We received the most cyber tips in relation to child exploitation material, and that was 11,000 87 cyber tips. So 87% of our entire load. So with these numbers, I just want you to draw your own conclusion as to, human trafficking versus what our cases consist of. And unfortunately, with our cases, they're occurring in places where parents feel their kids are the most safe. So places such as their house, in the child's bedroom, in the bathroom, things such as there. So for us, like, our cases don't have, one area that they could happen in. They could really happen to any child that possesses a device and doesn't know how to use it or isn't being monitored when they are using it. Within our cyber tips, we split them up into 4 separate categories. So I'm going to talk about sextortion a little later, but that would fall under the financial category, and that's about 2% of our cyber tips. The financial category is, it sounds exactly how it is, and it's the biggest concern is profit. We have explicit role play and conversations. That 32% category, and that consists of an adult enticing a minor to meet up with them in person, or for the adult to then travel to meet that minor. And then our largest category is the content category. This makes up about 60% of our cyber tips, and its sole encompass is the material that is sent between 2 individuals. This could be between 2 adults, it could be between a minor and an adult, it could be between a minor and another minor, but that is specifically what that category consists of. So with kids, the biggest concern that we hear from parents is social media. What age should kids be on social media? Should they be on it at all? Like, what does it do, and so on. So I found this study that I thought was really interesting, and Lurie's Children's Hospital of Chicago surveyed about 20,000 current or recent parents of teenagers. And their biggest goal was to understand how parents viewed social media. Do they see it as a good thing, a bad thing, a neutral thing, and they saw that there were 2 categories of concern. The first was what social media took away from their children, and the second was what it exposed their children to. So in terms of what it took away, they noted things such as took away sleep, face-to-face interactions, time away from schoolwork, and so on. And what social media exposed their children to was examples such as hate speech, sexual content, cyberbullying, harassment, and so on. And with these parents specifically in these studies, there was a larger concern with what was taken away from their child versus what they were exposed to. These are some numbers from the study done as a whole. So I have up there, how does social media affect your teen? Did quarantine change how your teenager views social media, how much they use it, and so on? And then lastly, what behavior was inappropriate that your teenager saw? And with the inappropriate behavior, the largest portion was that it was too sexual. And that came with about 51% of parents. So the conclusion with this study was twofold. So the first was that not all screen time is equal. And it really emphasized quality over quantity. And what comes with that is parental observation, so to speak. So checking in with your child, looking at their device, looking through those conversations, and so on. But this study also reflected offline vulnerabilities. So it was really looking at how do we promote healthy development and effective parenting when our kids are growing up in a digital age. We can't escape technology. We can't, get away from it because they're using it at school. They use it to connect with each other. So it really has become an integral part of our lives. So with technology, we emphasize a couple different things. The first one is time limits. Say to your child, you can use your device, you can use your tablet, your cell phone, but it can't be for 8 hours out of the day. We got to take a break. We got to set it to the side, do something else. The second thing is, who are they interacting with? Do you know every person that your child is messaging on Instagram? Do you know who they're playing with in terms of online video games? This is critical when it comes to keeping them safe and limiting their exposure to riskful subjects. And then lastly, what apps and sites are they using? I wish that there was just a manual that I could hand out to parents in terms of every social media app, what they do, the risks involved, and so on. But unfortunately, that doesn't exist. Working on it, but doesn't exist just yet. But it's important that you look through every single app on their device. It's not enough to just scroll through, look at them on the surface, and say, okay, we're good to go. Really dig into what they do, their different capacities, and so on. Along with social media comes this rule of privacy. We emphasize a lot to kids that privacy is key. There's not, how do I put this? We view privacy very different than kids do. We see it as very black and white. Don't put this online. This is why. With kids, they see it slightly more fluid. There's a huge concern with popularity. How many likes do I get? How many followers? And that has deterred kids from keeping their social media accounts private. So even if your child is being like the safest person online, having their social media account set to private is the next best thing. So these are some different examples in terms of how to set a privacy setting. This is Instagram, and you can see it just go under privacy and then flip that to private account. Unfortunately, a lot of social media platforms don't automatically set the account to private. So unless you go in and switch it yourself, it's going to remain a public account. This is Snapchat. It is slightly different than, other social media platforms, in that it allows geolocation if you don't switch it to private. So if you go under settings and my location, underneath that, you'll see this box that says ghost mode. And what you're going to want to do is flip that on. So with ghost mode on, that removes your location from the Snap map inside the app. This location, if you have ghost mode turned off, it allows all of your followers to see where you are in the world. And it even goes so far as to show if you're listening to music, if you're driving in a car, and so on. You can designate who can see the location, but we stress that you should just turn it off and leave it completely off. There's no real reason people need to see where you are or what you're doing, so this is the safest thing to do. And then with ghost mode, this is a newer feature that came out probably a couple months ago at this point. But with ghost mode, if you have it turned off and another one of your friends also has it turned off, you can see if they traveled within a 24-hour period from one location to the second location. So this is actually my Snapchat account. I turned my ghost mode off to just kind of mess around with it. And this person that I am friends with also had their ghost mode turned off. And it shows me that they drove from Columbus to Parma about 10 hours ago. The person underneath traveled from Illinois to Wisconsin 23 hours ago. And it has other information in there, such as birthdays, if you changed your avatar on Snapchat, and so on. But these top two is what the biggest concern is, showing one person traveling from one location to another. So if your child is on Snapchat, please have it turned on to ghost mode. So I touched on this before, but children see privacy slightly different than we do as adults. So it's important that you have active and ongoing conversations with your children about the importance of privacy. It's not enough to just say, don't do this because I said so. Because, kids are curious, kids are smart, they're going to figure out a way around it, they're going to explore it on their own. So as caregivers, it's super important that we take the initiative and have those conversations first before kids figure it out for themselves. So giving context clues to the conversation is great. So maybe saying, have your privacy turned on because it protects your information. In every picture you post, there's information. You could also say things such as it protects your friend's information, because if your account is private, whoever is trying to view that account cannot view who you're following or who you're friends with. So giving context clues and real life examples of why it's important is going to help kids better understand the overall concept. Along with privacy, we also, these are a couple common parental control apps that parents have told us that they really like. My only caveat with these is that they are not a catch-all. So some of them are really great in terms of time limits. Some of them are really great in terms of location tracking. However, there is not a single parental control app out there that covers everything. It still falls on the caregiver to go through the device, look at the conversations, look at what's said in the conversations, and then determine, is it safe, is it not safe from there? Because while these are a great tool, they shouldn't be the only tool in your toolbox. The question still remains, how do I know what my kids are doing online? And this is going to be a common theme throughout this presentation, but we really stress that ongoing conversations are key. So for example, I had a mom a couple presentations ago that said that she couldn't figure out Fortnite. For the life of her, she could not figure out how it worked. And so what she did was she set up a Friday game night where she would play Fortnite with her kids. And this allowed her to watch what her kids were doing, but also to learn how the game worked. So that was like her approach to learning about what her kids were enjoying and were into in terms of the internet. And I use this example because I think it's a great example of taking initiative. So instead of like ignoring it, saying, okay, my kids are playing on it, I don't know how it works, but you know, it doesn't matter. She took the initiative and figured out how it worked while also interacting with her kids and having those conversations. So frequent ongoing conversations are key, especially when it comes to things such as social media, sexting, and sextortion. So I want to return your attention to the content problem. So I mentioned before that this encompasses every kind of exploitative material that we receive in terms of a cyber tip. So like I said, it could be sent between two adults, it could be sent between two minors, or a minor and an adult, but it all falls within that 60% category. When I talk about what is sent between two minors, this is what I'm referring to, and it's sexting. So these are some statistics from 2020, I believe. However, they haven't really changed in terms of the numbers. But it just goes to show you how common of an activity this is. I mean, we have kids come up to us at the end of presentations asking us, you know, when is it okay to do this? Or they'll say, you know, this is all we know. We do this anyways. Everyone's doing it, and so on. And I think it just goes to show how big of a hurdle we have to overcome in order to not normalize this behavior. We had a meeting a couple months ago with a group of juniors and seniors across the state of Ohio. And we asked them very candid questions, such as, you know, what are the leading issues in terms of internet safety that they see? And we brought up the topic of sexting because we want to keep our information as up to date as possible. And they told us that of the kids that are caught by either law enforcement, administration, educators, parents, whoever, it's a very small percentage of the number of people that are actually doing it. So for us, it just illustrates how big of an issue we have to deal with in terms of education and telling kids that this is not a normal behavior, and there are serious implications that come with it. So similar to privacy conversations, frequent and ongoing is what I kind of want to drill into this presentation, is that is what is most important. So we need to do more than just say sexting is wrong. We need to give different examples and different context clues as to why it is wrong. So you could say that currently sexting is illegal in the state of Ohio. We don't have a separate sexting statute in terms of what a minor may send consensually to another minor and what we see in our adult cases. You could say things such as, even though it's super popular, it can end up anywhere online. You have no control over where it's sent or where it's posted after you send it to that one person. So above all, it's just super important to give examples, because with kids thinking that this is a normal behavior, we need to really outline why it is detrimental to their health. And one of those reasons is sextortion. So recently, this is a newer kind of criminal activity that we are seeing on our side of things. And it is essentially when an adult poses as a minor online and they convince a real child to send a sexually explicit photo or video. Once they have this photo or video, they then blackmail the child. So they'll demand exorbitant amounts of money in the hopes that the child will send a smaller amount and, you know, they get paid. We see it affect all age groups, but currently on the national level, we're seeing it affect boys ages 14 to 17 the most. Our cases consist of girls and boys. So just realize that there's no one age group, there's no one gender. It can really happen anywhere. So this is an example of, number one, a cyber tip line report, and number two, some of the messages that we have seen in our sextortion cases. So I'm going to talk about this disclaimer in a second, where it says indicates possible risk to an individual. We'll discuss that in a quick minute, but I want you to go through and read these messages. And this is pretty standard across most of our sextortion cases. So they say, I want $6,000, I'm going to ruin your life, tell me how much you can pay, and so on. So with these offenders, they're very different from our larger class of offenders, in that the larger class, they want material. They want photos, they want videos, they want new material to save. They covet it, they want it all the time. However, with these offenders in sextortion cases, that is not what we're seeing. What we're seeing the most is that they are only concerned with profit. So they really don't care about the pictures, they don't care about the videos. The only thing they care about is getting as much money as possible from whoever they're talking to. And a lot of these offenders will be talking to more than one child at any given time. So they may be talking to upwards of, 10, 12 different individuals. But overall, their sole purpose, their sole goal is to make money. And you're probably wondering, how do these cases start? The chats that I showed you before, this was the beginning of that conversation. So it starts off there's no red flags in this beginning part of the conversation. The only thing I've changed is the victim suspect name, but this is just copy and pasted from one of our investigations. So this small talk portion went on for about 20 minutes before our suspect asked for a nude video. Our victim complied and sent it. And then for the next 20 hours or so, our victim was messaging the suspect, begging them to, don't do this. I'm just a kid. I don't have this money, and so on. And this highlights just how fast these cases start and finish. So this case was 20 hours long. It's a stark difference from the days or weeks that we have to investigate these cases and put things together. There was another sextortion case out of San Jose that lasted for 5 hours. What sextortion is doing on the national level is creating a mental health crisis. So the education for sexting up until this point has been very one-sided. And it's been, if you send a nude photo and you're under the age of 18, you're going to get in trouble with the law. You're going to be labeled a felon. You're going to be labeled a sex offender and all this stuff. And this has unfortunately created a massive barrier for kids. They don't feel comfortable coming forward with this in the first place, let alone they're worried about the different consequences of sending this photo. So that in turn is creating a huge mental health problem, and that a lot of sextortion cases are unfortunately ending in suicide. So there was an individual out of Streetsboro last year. He unfortunately fell victim to sextortion, and he ended up taking his own life. There have been upwards of 15 suicides across the entire country strictly related to this. And the only reason that we were able to figure out it was sextortion was because there was an officer working the case who said, let's look at the phone, let's look at the conversations. So the education, like I said, up until this point has created a barrier. So for us as caregivers, as educators, it's important to flip the script now. So if a child does come to you and say, I've sent this nude video, this is happening, I don't know what to do, the number one thing for you to do is to not blame them. They are victims at this point, and we want to avoid victim shaming and blaming them for this because they obviously need help, and it's up to us to then provide those resources and provide that help. The second thing is to not continue talking to the offender. We've seen that even after money is sent, these offenders continue to message the child, continue to ask for more money. So there's nothing really you could say that's going to get them to stop. So we recommend ceasing all conversations. After that happens, it's important to screenshot the messages, the offender's profile, because this is all evidence. And this is super important for us in terms of our investigation and locating this suspect. And then after that, you want to submit a cyber tip line report. So the website to submit a cyber tip is report.cybertip.org. This is where it's essentially like filling out an online form where you fill out what's happening, where did it happen, and then you can document in more detail what occurred. The National Center Cyber Tip Line report is really great in terms of a resource for us because it allows us to track cases across the entire country. So let's say, for example, that a cyber tip is filed in Ohio. That cyber tip, we can then corroborate it with other ICACs across the country. So if this suspect is exploiting kids in Ohio, in Illinois, North Dakota, wherever, we can connect those cyber tips. So this is documenting an incident as a whole in terms of exploitation. It's very similar to sextortion, but it's not deleting anything, it's not responding or retaliating or conducting your own investigation. It's documenting everything, either in screenshots, saving it, and then submitting a cyber tip to the NCMEC cyber tip line. So this is the website for the National Center. They have a ton of great resources in terms of splitting it up into different age groups and in different topics. So if you're looking for more conversation starters or just for more resources in general, I highly recommend checking out this website. These are some additional websites. They are very similar to the National Centers in that they have different conversation topics, different teaching topics, and they're split up age-wise, which I think is really great in terms of, let's say you want to talk to your child about cyberbullying and they're in the 6th grade. If you go to the National Center's website or any of these websites, they're going to give you very clear conversation starters. If you're looking for more quantitative data, statistics, numbers, and so on, these 2 websites are great for that. So if you want to look up, surveys done on cyberbullying, on online enticement, and so on, these are 2 websites that are really great. And I actually pulled a lot of statistics for this presentation from these websites. All right. I know I went kind of fast. Like I said, it's just how I talk. But do you have any questions for me? Is there anything I missed or that you need more information on? I'm also going to stop sharing my screen because. Or if you want to put it in the chat, that works too.
Yeah, and I just want to encourage everybody, if you have a question, please ask. I know I can ask questions all day, so I'll start. I was wondering, were you all able to get information from the victims of why they sent the pictures?
So it kind of falls into just how popular sexting is as a whole. I mean, kids of all ages, unfortunately, they're exposed to it online, so they feel like it's the right thing to do. And when we ask them, why did you send this? We'll get answers similar to that, such as like, everyone else is doing it. I didn't know that there were, risks associated with it. So we get like a whole slew of answers in terms of why they did it. But it all kind of falls under the umbrella concept of that it's just kids think it's a normal behavior. Yeah.
We do have a question in the chat.
Okay. I do see that. So do we have resources for students with intellectual disabilities? We are slowly trying to build that department. I believe the National Center has some resources associated with intellectual disabilities. Geez, I cannot talk. But we are trying to provide more resources because I will say up until, recently it's been kind of one-sided for, able-bodied kids. However, we're trying to fill in those gaps as best we can. So I would recommend checking out the National Center. And then I believe also NetSmarts has some additional things. So that's where I would recommend starting. Okay, any other questions, any other concerns? Or I know this presentation was recorded, so if you have a question later on, please feel free to reach out to me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Just a question for the people, the participants on the call. Has anybody had any experience with the issues with the cyber security or issues with your, the children you have in your care that you question their use of their, all of the social media and their devices that you might want to share?
People are answering in the chat.
Mm. I see.
It looks like one person has Roblox is the problem for
Yeah.
the younger
Yes, and we see, I mean, a lot of kids tell us that they enjoy this type of game. It comes up a lot in our student presentations that they're either playing it or they know someone that does. So, I mean, everything we talked about can still be applied to that. So, talking with your kids, watching what they're doing on Roblox, on that platform, and just monitoring those conversations, who they're playing with, who they're talking to. Yeah, it kind of, even though they may seem very different in terms of like one video game to the next, you can still use pretty, standard precautions across them all.
Yeah, I was gonna just say that Roblox, it made me remember I have an 8-year-old boy and he was on that one, I believe. And there's another one, it's a meme one, where they have memes and you put phrases to it. But he was saying, what's either my email address or his, because he could win some money. And it was like I could win $5,000, and I'm like, come on. And I'm trying to tell him, don't do that. People just want your information. But just in his mind, I could win this money. Let me give this, like he's so trusting. Let me give him this information. And so it's like educating him, like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, because I mean, we see that a lot in that kids are curious. So if, someone suggests something, they're, depending on their age and what they're exposed to, they're very willing to kind of follow it, unfortunately. And I also see in the chat, how do we get caregivers to really learn how to use the monitoring programs? They're afraid of the processes and apps themselves. I'm going to get on my soapbox for a quick second and say that by not at least trying to figure out how these things work, that is putting their kids at risk. It's not enough for us to just like look at the devices, scroll through occasionally, and then, be like, all right, my kids are safe, I'm good. It's really important that caregivers kind of get over this, wall, this hurdle of, I don't know how this works, so I'm not gonna bother with it, because kids are going on it, whether we want them to or not. So it's super important that caregivers, really just dig into how these things work, whether it's downloading it, creating an account yourself, messing around with different functions, different features. It's critical to the kids' safety that caregivers at least put in the effort to figure out these different processes. Okay, I also see grandkids can't add an app on the iPad without my permission. That's awesome. I think that's a feature on both Apple and Samsung. I'm not entirely sure about Samsung because I'm an Apple user, but I do know that there are specific things that you can put in there that prevents them from downloading things unless you give them like permission. Lock up their devices at night. That also works. But yeah, these are
Emmaleigh,
yeah, go ahead.
what about these, I don't know the exact term for them, but they're like ghost apps or hidden apps that you don't look like one thing, but they're actually something else, sort of a dark kind of app kind of thing that, how easy is it for kids to have access to those?
They're quite easy, especially if if your permission settings, especially on the phones, like if you have to, if you don't have it set up to where you have to allow the downloads, I mean, kids can download them super easy. The calculator app, the Vault calculator app, has been coming up in presentations for a while. And that's essentially, it looks like a calculator, it works like one, but if you put in a certain code, it opens up a hidden file where you can put pictures and videos and so on. There's also an app that's just called Vault, and it works the same way. You put in a code, you have access to a folder. Snapchat also has a feature called For My Eyes Only, where if you're on the main Snapchat screen, if you swipe up and over, it is a file that says For My Eyes Only, and if you put in a code, it then opens it. So it is super easy to download these and use them. My advice would be, similar before, go through everything, look at it, mess around with it, and so on. And if your kid has 2 calculators on their device, that is a red flag, because one is probably not a calculator.
Would some of these names of these websites be identified on the resource information out there?
Yes. Yeah.
Like what to look for?
Yeah, and if you just Google Vault apps, you'll get a whole list of ones that come up. Yeah, that's also another thing that we stress is that Google is great in terms of figuring out how things work. So, I mean, if you see something on your child's device that you're like, I've never seen this before, I don't know what it is, just Google it. It'll show you what it does, its different features, and what you can use it for. Okay, any other questions? Let me see. So there's one that says, I'm a kinship navigator, and most of them are older, not active on any or few of the internet apps. Many have difficult working with their email. Is there any ABC tutorial? Depending on what email platform they use, you can find tutorials on Google. So just by looking that up, they're going to be on there. All right. Are there any other questions or concerns? Anything I can help out with?
Okay, I would say, as they say, going once. We have something. I see a couple other things popping in the chat.
Okay, so one says on Twitter, adults are bragging about messaging with kids on Roblox. They're telling kids on Roblox to get a credit card from their mom's purse. Yeah, another unfortunate thing that happens online. But it's also with this, I would just stress that this just shows you how important it is to have these conversations with your kid, frequent and ongoing, because it's not enough to just have one conversation when they're first getting on their device, whether it's a tablet, a cell phone, and so on. This type of safety is lifelong until they've had their device for long enough, they're adults, and so on. So I would say that this just highlights how important it is to talk about a broad range of topics and to do it frequently.
And somebody that asked about tutorials, you might want to go to the AARP website because they have a lot of information out there to try to help our generation get up to speed with all of the internet and email usage. So AARP might be a good website to go to get some tutorials on how to use all of these devices and find out where you can go to be able to use them and also monitor what's being used by grandkids and other kids that are in your care.
Okay. I would say, any other question, last minute questions, comments, concerns for Ms. Welka?
And also, if you think of anything, please feel free to reach out. Whatever you need, I can definitely help out with.
And we'll post the recording, as well as if you will provide us with your PowerPoint, we'll also post that under our resource tab in the on our website.
Okay, perfect. I will send on that information.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we appreciate you once again. Someone else is okay. We appreciate your time, and we appreciate your timely presentation. This information is very helpful, and I think many of us need to get some training, or just like you said, Google and look into this so we'll know exactly what the children in our care are doing and how to protect them.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated all your time and your efforts. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Barbara, I think I'm turned some of this portion on to you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Emmaleigh. It was we've had this a couple of years ago, and I think you've added some other layers to what was presented a couple of years ago. That again, you showed the data that how the increases happened over the last few years with all of the new information that's out there and you know what kids are, how they're manipulating kids. So this has been an excellent update. Thank you very much. Now we'll choose our gift card recipient today is going to be Darlene Roberson. Darlene is consistently attending our meetings and has been involved with OGKC for a number of years, and she has care of her grandson. And so Darlene will get you a $50 gift card for attending today and participating. And thank everybody else for being online and participating, and it's been a good meeting and good response to it. And we can have any closing remarks that anybody has or comments that they want to give before we close out.
I just wanted to remind people of our next meeting on December the 9th, which is our Christmas celebration, and make sure that you register for that. That link, Eventbrite link was sent out, and it's going to be, it was really nice last year. We're looking forward to it. The children in your care will get to talk to Santa and tell them what they're wanting for Christmas. And then you will be also eligible to receive a gift card to purchase some things as well. December the 9th.
I received it this morning, and then when I went on this afternoon, it said sold out, and I thought, oh no. So I went back in and I was able to register for it.
Right. We had some technical difficulties, of course, but we had everything covered. And so that did happen, and I was able to we were able to catch it early enough to resend the email and ask people if they were not able to register to try again. So I'm hoping that people went back in and we got, I'm sure we're not going to have a problem getting the 75 registrations, but I wanted to make sure that everybody had the opportunity. So that's good to know that you were able to get back in and get registered, and hopefully, I'm sure there won't be a problem. We'll have a full house that Saturday. So good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. And I saw, Maria, you said that you registered, so just registered. So yes, always good to do it. All right. If we're not missing anything, and if there's no comments, concerns, or questions, then we will end our meeting for today. I want to thank again everybody for showing up. We appreciate your time, and we will see you next month.